Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the first video of the off-season. Hope you're all well. And as the title of this video suggests, today I'm just going to be talking about the transfer window, what I think will happen, my hopes for it, that sort of thing. I'm going to split this video into a couple of sections. So we're going to talk about the out-of-contract players and loans first. Then we're going to talk about who will leave, in my opinion, who might leave, but I don't think will, and what could happen to some of the academy players, and ultimately where I think we should be targeting in this window and who I think may come in. Let's get cracking. So first we will talk about the players who are here on loan and are out of contract at the end of the season. We'll talk about the loans first. We've got Darlow, Connolly, Ibue, Pelkas and Baxter here on loan at the moment. Well, to cut a long story short, I don't think we'll be seeing Nathan Baxter in Hull City colours again. The same for Demetrius Pelkas and Malcolm Ibue. Rosenior more or less confirmed those two after the final game of the season at Luton. That leaves Aaron Connolly and Carl Darlow, and we'll touch upon those two again later on when it comes to signings. But, in the first team, out of contract, are Billy Chadwick, Aaron Connolly, Vaughan Colville, Louis Coyle, Greg Docherty, Alfie Jones and Tyler Smith. So there's 7 players there. I've put Chadwick in the first team for a reason, because I want to discuss him in a bit of detail here. And plus there's a couple of academy players, so Louis Charlton, who signed a 6-month extension in January. Then there's Harry Fisk, Ollie Green, Sincere Hall, Josh Hines, Will Jarvis, Jake Leake, Harry Lovick, Tom Macaulay, Tom Nixon, David Robson, Macaulay Snellgrove, Alfie Taylor and Harry Wood, Harry Wallace as well. So I know what a couple of the academy boys are doing, all of them bar Hines and Robson and Charlton. Everyone bar those 3 in the academy has optional 1-year extensions. Hines was used last summer. Robson's was also used last summer. Charlton didn't have one. And of course, in the first team, just going back, there's Callum Elder as well, who is already confirmed to be leaving. So we'll discuss Billy Chadwick first, and I think the ship has sailed, sadly for Billy. He's a lovely, lovely lad, but I think the fact at 22, when he was rated higher than Keane Lewis Potter in terms, well, on a level if not higher than Keane Lewis Potter for potential, and the fact he's got half a season of goal scoring under his belt, really. Of course, his time at Linfield was cut short with the knee injury which he had, which was terrible for him and set him back the best part of a year. But I think the fact he's only just getting decent minutes, consistent minutes and scoring goals at 22 in the National League North, I don't think bodes very well for his chances at Hull City. So I think he will be gone. Vaughan Colville, I think he will stay, be it activating the 1-year extension or extending the contract, signing a new one. I think Vaughan will stay. Louis Coyle is another one with an option. Either that will be taken or he'll sign a new one. That's certain for me. And then there's Greg Docherty, who Rosenior has said they've extended the option of, but when we talk about who might leave later on, we'll discuss Docherty in a little bit more detail. Alfie Jones, he has to stay for me. I think he will, be it with the option or signing a new deal. And then there's Tyler Smith, who I think will leave as well. I just think that his time at this club is up. And then as for the academy, like I say, I know what some of the boys are doing already, and I'm going to wait for them to say that in, whatever way they want. But I think out of those who I don't know, I am willing to speculate. So I will say that I think Alfie Taylor will be sticking around. I can say the same probably for Harry Wood and for Tom Nixon as well. The rest, some I know, some I don't. So I'm going to leave that for the sake of the boys wanting to announce that, be it when the club announces it or whether they and when they want to announce what they're doing individually. So moving on from players who are out of contract or on loan, let's move on to players who I think will leave the football club. We will start with someone who was tipped to be our Keane Lewis-Potter replacement, but it just never worked out. Durkan Sinik went back out on loan in the second half of this season, back to where he came from, Antalyaspor. He's done all right out there from what I've seen, scored a couple of goals, but I think his time is up. Simple as that. I don't think he ever settled here. And look, that's just football. That's just football. So for Durkan, I wish him all the best, but I do think he will be leaving the football club. The second player who I think will be leaving is Tobias Figueiredo. Now, someone told me a while ago that Figueiredo had been told he could look for a move, and someone who lives near where he lived in Hull said that he said goodbye to everyone on the estate a couple of days ago. So it's more or less confirmed that Figueiredo is leaving, from what I can say and what I've heard anyway, which is a shame because it just never worked. But Figueiredo leaving does mean we could potentially be looking at a centre-back, and we'll discuss a rumour on that in a couple of moments' time. The final one who I think will be leaving then is Ryan Woods. Hull Live reported the other day that Woods has been made available for transfer by Liam Rosenior and by the club. And he's always been a bit of a bit part player under Rosenior, and I think as soon as Simons was signed permanently, I think that spelled the end for Woods. Although his experience could be vital, I think with Simons, we've got Seri's natural successor there, and Rosenior really, really likes him. That leads us perfectly into signings, where we'll start with Karl Darlow, and I think he stays. I think Karl Darlow comes back, be it on loan again next season or permanently as a Hull City player, I don't know. But I think Karl Darlow is back through the door at the MKM Stadium next season in some way, shape or form. And that makes me very, very happy. I love Matty Ingram, I do. But I think that's just... I think Darlow's just next level. And on that note, we'll move on to Aaron Connolly, where this one's a little bit more complicated, but I do think Connolly will still return. Rosenior likes him, that's very clear, but Rosenior also is mindful of the fact we've had awful injury problems this year, and Connolly has been quite fragile, as in he broke his toe, was expected to be out for 6 weeks. He missed from February through to the end of the season. So it's a tough one, but someone like Connolly will come in who's a little bit different to what we've got in Oscar and Ben Tete up front. If it's not Connolly, I'm sure Rosenior has another target of that ilk, of that mould, but whether it's Connolly, we don't know. Rosenior, like I say, he's balancing a line between, look, I really like Connolly and we know he can do a job. I'd like to see more of him in black and amber, but injuries. But with a full pre-season under his belt, things could be a little bit different. As for the academy, I've said Vaughan Coville will stay. I could see Vaughan getting loaned out at some point over the next season to get more minutes. The same for Jim Sims. I've said Alfie Taylor will stay. And I think he'll get loaned out as well. Will Jarvis, I think he will get a loan move somewhere. So I think Rosenior, he likes these guys. I think he wants them to go out and get experience. Same thing could happen to Callum Jones and Matty Jacob, to be fair. And then there's Andy Smith, who's been out on loan these last couple of years. With Figueiredo leaving, for me, does that allow him to come in as a fourth choice centre-back and to be challenging the likes of Alfie Jones, Sean McLaughlin, Jacob Greaves? Or does he get loaned out again? Do we sign someone else, someone with championship experience? I think Andy Smith, if I were in Rosenior's shoes, I'd let Andy Smith stay and fight for his place because I think he's quality. But time will tell. And then I mentioned signing Karl Darlow a couple of moments ago. That will leave us with Darlow, Ingram, Lottatala and Cartwright. I think one of Lottatala and Cartwright will get loaned out. I think that's certain. But even if we don't sign Darlow, I'm happy with Lotta Tyler being number 2 to Ingram or even taking number 1 at some point. I think Cartwright, with the injuries he's had over the last season, only playing one or two league games at Wycombe, I think he needs another full year out on loan, playing games consistently in League One. I think that's a good level for him. But Lotta Tyler, I think, with Cartwright's injuries and being loaned out, I think he has jumped Cartwright in the queue. Looking briefly then at players who could leave, but I don't think will. I think Jacob Greaves falls into that category. There will be interest, definitely, but I think we will keep hold of him and we will have 4 very, very, very good centre-backs next season, all challenging for each other, just for the 2 spots, be it McLaughlin, Jones, Greaves, someone new coming in, or Andy Smith as that 4th one. I think we will have a very, very good bank of centre-halves here next season. Brandon Fleming is another one. People might think his time is up now, but I think he will stay as a backup left-back, because Rossini did say he likes Fleming and he wants to keep him in his plans long term. And Fleming, we will bring another left back in and we'll talk more about who that could be in just a second. But I think Fleming will stay here. He just signed a new contract last summer until 2025, I think, or 26, something like that. So he's got a long time left on his deal. Then there is Greg Doherty, who Rossini said the club have extended his contract using the 1-year option. But at Luton, he looked as though he was waving goodbye of some sorts. And, there were tears in his eyes. It looked so... Could he be leaving? Don't know. But they could just do what we did with George Honeyman, where we extended the option and then moved him on. Although the situation with Honeyman last summer was a little bit different, where we negotiated and he turned it down because he didn't think he'd be valued in the same way. When I think this season he definitely would have been with the injuries we had. But I think Doc will stick around, but that's food for thought, only taking the option on him. Moving on to the ins then, I mentioned Darlow and Connolly before. I think they both will come back. And I briefly touched on centre-back earlier. Let's move into that area now, where today, as I'm recording this, we were linked with Sonny Bradley, leaving Luton, championship experience, but it's another left-footed centre-half. And if Greavesy stays and McLaughlin stays, why would we need 3 left-footed centre-halves? That's my question. And look, as nice as it is, ex-player coming back, whoopie-doo, I don't think Sonny will be coming back. It'd be nice for him. It'd be nice for people that know him. I know a couple of people that know Sonny from in this area, but I don't think Sonny will be coming back. Then I've put on my slide of graphics there Jean-Paul Van Heck. Now that is very, very aspirational, but it's one we were linked with in January. Never really came off, was never really going to come off. But I think he's out of contract at Brighton, but he is very, very highly rated there. But if we're looking for another centre-half just on a loan, I don't see why we shouldn't try and get him, because he proved at Blackburn the other year he's not too bad at all. But then what will Brighton want to do with him and bringing players through? That's what Brighton are very good at. The third player on that slide is someone who Rossini has worked with in the past, Aaron Cashin, centre-half at Derby. With them not going up, them staying in League One, that could be something that we explore. But I'd either expect for a 4th centre-back if Figueiredo leaves, someone to come in, or if not, Andy Smith will just shuffle up into the first team after his 2 years out on loan. Next, we're going to move over to left-back. Callum Elder has left, so there is space for a new number 3 at left-back, and I think it's between 2 players. The first of which is Ryan Manning, leaving Swansea. That's confirmed. We'd get him on a free, but there'll be a lot of competition for him. He will have a lot of interest, but I think based on the way he's played this season and based on the way he played against us a couple of weeks ago at the MKM, I see no reason why we shouldn't have put an offer in for him, because he's a quality player. And the second one is Radvan Yilmaz from Rangers, Turkish young left-back. Now this all stems from something Acun said to the people in hospitality on the final game of the season. He said that there is a player who we put a bid in for last summer, bid in the region of around 7 million, who has been in contact with him and wants to come. He's not too happy where he is and he's interested in the project. Now, for me, it's two players that could be: Yilmaz or Vedat Mariki, the striker, the Kosovan striker who's out in Mallorca. I don't think it's him because he's scored goals and played consistently this year. Yilmaz, yes, he's had his injury troubles at Rangers, but I think he might have just struggled adapting up there in Glasgow, and coming down here with Ozan, with Aliyah, who speak Turkish and have been in Turkey and know the culture. Ozan seems to have fit into the group really well. Same for Pelkas, same for Aliyah. So I don't see any reason why, if that player is Yilmaz, he'd have any trouble, because he's very highly rated and we need a left back. But the issue is the price. I think Arjun said the bid last summer for this player was about 7 million. And we have to be careful with FFP. We have to be very, very, very careful indeed. But to summarise, I think we will bring a left back in, and I think it will be one of Ryan Manning or Radvan Yilmaz. Finally, I just want to touch on a player who we were very, very, very close to signing in January, and that is Conrad De La Fuente. Winger, American winger from Marseille. We were going to get him on loan. We have an option to buy him in that loan, but it just fell apart on deadline day. But I think we will go back for him. Only issue being, again, the money. And the second thing being, he hasn't played since either November or August. I'm not sure which one. He was out at Olympiacos, and the deal was scuppered by the fact Olympiacos had to agree to terminate the loan with Marseille, and then we had to fly him out and all stuff like that, and that's how it fell apart. So it'll be a complicated deal to do because there'll be a lot of money involved, but I can see that deal being one Rosinha explores, because Arjun had it all agreed in January, and with the summer window being the summer window and Rosinha wanting to get his business done early, there'll be a bit more time to complete all the nuances of the deal. But that is that for this video, ladies and gentlemen. Let me know what you think down in the comments. As soon as the retained and released list is announced, I'll have a video out for that, explaining what's going on and running through what the squad looks like before a transfer window can properly get underway, once we've sorted all the contracts out. And we'll see what happens, basically. But thank you very, very much for watching. Take care, and up the Tigers. Goodbye.